This breaking news that we've been following since early this morning, a jet with 60 passengers and 4 crew members aboard colliding with an Army helicopter while landing at Ronald Reagan National Airport near Washington. Officials with the FAA say that the collision remains under investigation. Officials with the FAA say that the collision happened around 9 p.m. last night. This is a live picture here of the scene now. You can see the video response from earlier this morning after the crash. Local crews responding, as you can imagine, in a hurry. Those units were carrying boats and rafts as they prepared to begin those rescue operations.
So here is what we know thus far about the crash. The crash occurred as Flight 5342 prepared for landing. The Black Hawk helicopter was on a training flight at the time of the incident.
Yeah, this morning Reagan National Airport is closed until 11 a.m. They do plan to reopen. At the airport, family members of likely victims had gathered there in a lounge as officials work to provide them more updates. Now, fireboats responding to the scene along with the Metropolitan Police Department, United States Park Police, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue System, the FBI Washington Field Office, National Capital Response Squad, and other agencies from surrounding jurisdictions all responding last night. And this is some video of that. We do have some new audio right now, though, from air traffic control immediately following that crash. Go ahead and take a listen.
It was probably out in the middle of the river. I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half-mile off the approach end of 33.
In a social media post, President Donald Trump described the collision as a bad situation that looks like it could have been prevented. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who was just confirmed, we should note, to his cabinet post on Tuesday, says that he is, quote, on site at the FAA headquarters and closely monitoring that situation. And we heard from him earlier this morning at a press conference.
That's right. The American Airlines CEO also speaking up and releasing a video statement about the airline's cooperation with the ongoing investigation into that crash.
We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events. That work will take time, but anything we can do now, we're doing. And right now, that means focusing on taking care of all passengers and crew involved, as well as their families. Members of our GO team will be on their way to Washington, D.C., and I'll be heading there shortly as well.
The crash comes just one day after a subsidiary of American Airlines Group announced that they're moving their corporate headquarters to Charlotte. PSA Airlines now moving to the Wateridge Office Park located along Wateridge Parkway and just 5 miles away from Charlotte Douglas International Airport. We know that move will be done by 2026.
All right, we want to give you a look at the FlightAware misery map here. You can see majority of delays and cancellations are coming out of D.C., which is Reagan National this morning. We know that we heard earlier from officials at the airport that around 11 o'clock is when they plan on reopening the airport today.
We're joined now by military analyst, retired Marine Colonel Mark Cansian, to discuss the crash and get his insight. Colonel, thank you again for joining us. Is there anything there that has seemed out of the ordinary in terms of what happened? We heard regular flight path by both the helicopter and the jet there. It's a protected airspace, a crowded airspace. Does anything pop out to you as something doesn't seem right?
Unfortunately, no. The airspace over Washington, D.C. is very crowded. Of course, we have a major airport essentially downtown, Reagan. And then you have the regular helicopters that you would see in Charlotte, the police helicopters, the weather helicopters. But in addition, we have a lot of military helicopters. There are 4 helicopter bases close by. Each one of the services flies helicopters for VIP missions, national security, homeland security missions, and it gets very crowded. What makes it extra crowded is that all of those flights are channeled over the river, and they do that to keep the noise down in the suburbs and also to keep aircraft away from sensitive downtown locations. Both of the aircraft were traveling over the river. The passenger aircraft was flying from the south to the north, and the helicopter was coming from the north to the south, both over the river, and tragically they ran into each other.
And we should note, Colonel, here that this we know is a training exercise with those military members on board. But just because, it's a training operation doesn't mean that these pilots were inexperienced, right?
That's correct. The basic training for pilots goes on elsewhere. For the Army, it's down at Fort Rucker. These are normal training operations for operational units, and they're training for a wide variety of missions that the services have in the DC area. You don't want the services to do a real world mission for the first time when it really matters. You want them to have practiced and to be ready for it. And that's what was happening here. We don't know what the mission was, but there are a lot of possibilities.
As we wait on results from the investigation, what do you expect is happening on military bases in that area this morning, especially those that may fly the same exact type of aircraft, that Black Hawk helicopter? Do you just assume that they probably will ground all of those this morning until further details, that there's extra instructions coming from flight instructors?
I expect all of the commanders of rotary wing in the area are talking to their crews. Certainly they're giving the crews a briefing on what happened and telling them to be extra careful, to be linked in with the air traffic control. And it's not just the Black Hawks. This happened to have been a Black Hawk. The Army flies those, but the Marine Corps flies helicopters, a different kind of helicopter, so does the Air Force. I wouldn't be surprised to see the military have a safety stand down at some point. They haven't announced that yet, but that's typical after a crash like this. They'll ground all the aircraft. They'll have a review of safety procedures, what happened, try to prevent it from happening again.
Colonel Canson, when these type of training exercises happen, you talked about it there, these don't mean that they're doing military drills. Training exercises up and down the Potomac River can simply be for preparing to do these flights with military officials, dignitaries, because the Black Hawks, as you mentioned, quite frequently fly up and down the Potomac River.
Well, that's right. There are a variety of missions, and of course the VIP mission is one that's quite well known, but there are also Homeland Security missions where they might have requirement to move troops or some other forces to some part in the DC area. It could have been something like that also.
And Colonel, talk a little bit about how the investigation will go from here, because we have the NTSB now being this lead agency on that, but the military also has to go through their own protocols, and they might end up being a little bit more tight-lipped than what the public information might be from the NTSB.
Well, it's possible. I'm sure there will be a military investigation that runs parallel with the NTSB investigation. I think most of the information will come out.
All right.
Appears we lost Colonel Canson right there. Sorry, seems like we're having some technical difficulties getting Colonel Canson there. Again, retired Marine Colonel Mark Canson joining us this morning. We appreciate his insight. Are we still working to get him? Okay, we appear to have that audio issue resolved.
All right.
Great.
Hi, Colonel. Okay, bringing you back there. But obviously this investigation will take some time. And what else are we expecting from the military?
I don't think you're going to get a whole lot more from the military than you're getting from the NTSB. They'll run a parallel investigation. Typically, those results are published, and I think that they will publish the results of these. There may be some details about the mission that are classified, but maybe not. But I think you're going to get most of the information from the NTSB, since they have the lead and are more accustomed to a public role in a situation like this.
Colonel Mark Canson, we always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for your time this morning twice.